The Nintendo eShop for the Wii U and 3DS are closed for good, which means the only way to play these games legally is to get them physically, and you know what that means? Prices of physical games are going up. At least with the Wii U, most of the games were ported to the Nintendo Switch, which kept the prices in check, but the 3DS on the other hand... Welcome to Retronomics, the series that follows price trends in video games, and last week was a dark day for gaming history. The Nintendo eShop for the Wii U and 3DS shut down for good, despite everybody trying to buy things up until it closed. Even Gerard the Completionist couldn't keep it open despite dropping almost $20,000 on everything that was listed. Last year, when I did an episode on the 3DS, the prices were increasing and it looked like they wouldn't really settle down at the moment, but they did, but not in the way that the Wii U prices did. When the Wii U prices spiked, they dropped down after a month or so to maybe 10 or 15% more than what they were going for before the spike, and that's typical. But with 3DS prices, some games spiked 100% and then they dropped to about 75% above what they were before the spike, and then they stayed there for the rest of the year. Now we're starting to see another spike, and it doesn't help that the system itself has increased tremendously in value as well. The 3DS has so many special variants, which means that some are going for way more than others. The Majora's Mask new 3DS XL, for example, that was originally difficult to get, has sold listings going for well over $600. Even a used, complete in-box 3DS XL is fetching almost as much as a new Nintendo Switch OLED. This is a good example of how demand drives prices. The 3DS line of systems didn't sell poorly. In fact, it sold more than 5 times as much as the Wii U. And when you compare the Wii U to the 3DS, we see tons of people clamoring for everything 3DS. They were even in my previous video about the Wii U asking me to do a Retronomics video on the 3DS. That being said, the 3DS sold a ton of units and the current demand for the system might die down within the next year, so I wouldn't panic and start to pay whatever prices you see online. I know that it might be tempting, given that some people have said that this is just the beginning of the price boom and not the top of it, but good deals can still be had if you're patient and check locally, and also ask yourself, do you really want a 3DS or you just want one because you see the price taking off? Just don't wait for prices to drop to pre-pandemic levels because you're going to be waiting a very long time. Prices are unlikely to go down anytime soon if the games that I forecast in this video are any indication. It's just that you should probably wait out the spike to see if prices will correct so that way you can save some money. Before I forecast the game prices, here's how Retronomics works. I get all of my prices from pricecharting.com and I check eBay's available listings to determine if the prices will go up, down, or stay the same. All of the prices listed in this video are complete in box and North American variants. With that out of the way, here are some stats about the 3DS prices as a whole, and if you want me to do some other stats, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. According to pricecharting.com, there are 110 items that are over $100 complete in the box, and this includes special editions and consoles. If you exclude all of that, 17 games are over $100 complete in box, and 8 of those are over $200 complete. So compare that to the Wii U that only had 8 games over $100 total. So let's get into some 3DS price forecasting. It was really hard to pick a Nintendo 3DS console to forecast in this video because there are so many of them. Which one do I include? A first 3DS, an XL, a new 3DS XL, or a 2DS? So I went with a black 3DS XL because it was the cheapest, and new 3DS systems are twice the price loose, and this price seems to be consistent. Honestly, it is rough out there if you even want to start getting into 3DS. There are so many special editions that are almost as expensive as a PlayStation 5 complete and as much as a new Nintendo Switch loose. While I have found some of the doorstop 2DS for $60 or so, you could always try to import one and jailbreak it if you can find one cheap enough. Now let's get into some games, and we'll start with Shin Megami Tensei 4, which has been hovering between $50 and $60 since the end of 2020 and up until recently. Since the eShop has finally closed, there are some sold listings for much higher, but it doesn't seem like it will go much higher than this. Like I mentioned in the last video, you can still get a new sealed copy for a reasonable price, and a common Atlas game is pretty rare these days, so buy now or wait. Bravely Default is on the rise for used copies, but sealed ones are plentiful, and that's because they're not from the US region. They're meant for the United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, and Singapore markets, but they do work in a North American 3DS despite the system being region locked. So if you want to save some money, go that route. But really, the collector's edition is the one to keep an eye out for, but if you're looking for a quality turn-based RPG from Square Enix, this is a great addition to anyone's collection, especially if you find one at a reasonable price. Since my last video, Rayman 3D got just above $20 and then fell back down. Rayman 3D is a remake of Rayman 2, and the series just doesn't get traction like the others on this list, which means that the game is inexpensive. I try to include some affordable games to show people that it's not all doom and gloom, so buy now or wait. Spirit Camera will probably continue to rise now that the eShop is officially closed. This is part of the Fatal Frame series, and it's part of the horror genre, which is fairly popular among collectors. And there's not too many available on eBay for the starting price, so consider buying it now before the price rises too much. Cubic Ninja is super flat with little increases since the last time I made a video on it. It's no longer needed to jailbreak the 3DS, so maybe pick it up for the novelty or wait until you find it at a yard sale or something. And yes, that's what I said in the last video, no real change at all. Cave Story is rising more since the eShop closed, and this game does come with a lenticular cover which affects the overall price of this game. So if that's not really important to you, you can save some cash overall, but this version of Cave Story has been desirable since it came out, but you can find it on the Switch for almost a third of the price if you don't really care for that 3D effect. I mentioned last time you should consider buying it, and I stand by that, but keep an eye out for this one to see if the price starts to come down as more people look to unload their copies. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D hasn't really moved that much in price all year, but now that the eShop is closed, we're seeing it creep up, but not a lot. The cool thing about this is that there is a Nintendo Selects version, which keeps this version separate for collectors who want to keep their spines consistent. This also has a UAE variant if you want to save some money that way, but the North American version is still fairly easy to find and around what price charting has it listed for, so buy now or wait. Last year, Fire Emblem Fates Conquest was creeping a bit, but not by much. Before the eShop shut down, it was actually on its way to pre-pandemic price levels, but now it's on the rise. Fire Emblem as a franchise is pretty popular, and while this is nowhere as expensive as the versions on GameCube and Wii, it's still kind of pricey. There's a couple of places selling sealed listings and they seem legit, but I can't really say for certain. eBay's customer service protection works, but counterfeits are so easy to make nowadays that I'd probably pay extra knowing that what I'm getting is legit. That being said, consider buying now as the series holds its value. Kid Icarus Uprising is one of those games that will most likely be locked to the Nintendo 3DS for a good long time, and a copy with AR cards and other goodies will likely keep it expensive. This game is already going for more than its peak last year, so I suggest if you find a copy for a reasonable price, snag it because it is unlikely to fall back down to its pre-pandemic price ever again. Yokai Watch 3 is one of those games that doesn't really have spikes, it just steadily climbs month over month. The game is one of the last 3DS games made in North America, and it is certifiably rare, and it's a fan favorite to boot, so I suggest buying it now if you see a copy within your budget because it is unlikely that you'll ever see a price lower than what it's going for now. Dragon Quest VIII hasn't come close to its initial peak back in April of 2021 at $140, but that could change now that the eShop is closed for good and the 3DS North American copies on eBay are already being listed for well over what Price Trading currently has it listed as. Luckily, this is one that is available on the PlayStation 2 for significantly less if you want to play that game, but it's still missing from modern platforms. Keep an eye out as we might see some price drops, but they'll be few and far between. Last video I mentioned that the Guide Louvre might still be in stock, and someone said that they would check, but they never got back to me, so I think it's safe to say that either 1, it's no longer sold, or 2, they bought all of the remaining stock themselves and made bank on eBay. Either way, this is one of the most unique 3DS games, and I would say it would reach Grail status in the next 5 to 10 years. It was exclusive to the museum and will never be re-released. So buy it now if you see it, or if you speak other languages than English, grab one of those because it's not as expensive. Next up is Barbie Groom and Glam Pups, and this game is rarer than the Guide Louvre, but not as cool and way more expensive. Last time I made this video, a copy was newsworthy and sold for $1,600. Now the latest eBay sale went for more than double that. Honestly, this is only if you want a complete set and honestly bragging rights, at least to other collectors. I don't think that the layman is going to understand why a Barbie game is worth $3,000. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about Real Fishing 3D, which is pretty inexpensive even with its spike to a whopping $30 last July. Expect this game to keep low for the foreseeable future, so buy now or wait. Metal Gear Solid 3D is probably never going to come down. It seems that if a Metal Gear game is on a Nintendo console, people are going to pay a premium for it, despite it being a reworked version of Metal Gear Solid 3 for the PlayStation 2. Oh, I just got why they call it 3D. That's pretty clever. Anyway, unless Konami plans on re-releasing the Metal Gears on multiple modern platforms, expect this one to remain pricey from here on out. It would be wise to snag a copy now, as some do pop up for less than Price Trading's price from time to time. Shovel Knight's physical version is worth it on every platform. It has a high quality manual and the game is good. Unfortunately, everyone feels that way, with a lot of copies being listed on eBay for double the current Price Trading price. Since it is a multi-platform game, it might be worth it to just ride out the FOMO, as it doesn't appear that many are selling at this price anyway. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D is only for the new 3DS, so plan accordingly, but this is a direct port of the Wii title Xenoblade Chronicles, and it's available on the Wii and the Nintendo Switch, so unlike Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Wii U, it isn't really spiking in price. If you are a collector and you enjoy playing these games on the handheld in 3D, consider buying now or wait for a better price. Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright is the combination of two beloved series, and this price has almost doubled since the beginning of the year. There is a new Professor Layton game on the horizon, which means that the series is back in public eye, and while the Phoenix Wright titles for the DS and 3DS have been ported to the Nintendo Switch, all Professor Layton properties remain on the 3DS and DS, so this will probably fetch a high dollar for the foreseeable future, so if you find a good price, buy it now. Mario & Luigi's Superstar Saga and Bowser's Minions is a re-release of the Game Boy Advance game with added features. It's a later title and was inexpensive up until the eShop closed down, and now it's spiked in price. There aren't many available listings for that price that Price Trading has it listed as, outside of those United Arab Emirates copies. Given that the game is available in one form or another on other platforms, including the Nintendo Switch Online service, it might be worth it to wait it out and see if the price comes down a bit. But don't wait too long, 3DS games are unlikely to really come down anytime soon. Senran Kagura 2 is a game that I would recommend buying now, since a lot of these styles of games seem to be falling out of fashion, assuming that you can find a copy. Limited run games released a small run that sold out instantaneously, so it might be rarer than expected. The Double D version is much more plentiful, but a bit more expensive, so consider that if you really want this game now. Rhythm Thief peaked at its highest in July of 2022 and dipped to $200 in November before starting to rise again in December. So no rest for the price. The game is rare, and not just it's a hunch that it's rare either. So the price might not get as high as it did back in July, but there's no copies for around what price charting has it listed for, so use your best judgment. Like I said, it's rare, so the question is, do you really think that this game is worth it? Shantae and the Pirate's Curse dropped a little bit after my last video, but not really significant like the other games, and now it's on its way back up higher than what it's ever been. Depending on how much of a Shantae fan you are, it might be prudent to snag now. The Shantae games have held their value quite a bit over the years. A Link Between Worlds is an excellent game for the 3DS and unlikely to get ported to the Switch anytime soon. There is a spike, and it's mainly due to the eShop closing down, but there is also a print run preference. The second print run has Game of the Year on it, where the first edition doesn't. And there was a sold listing for $100 for a first print, but if you look hard enough, you'll find one of those games for around the price starting price. I suggest buying it now, as the Wii U and GameCube have proven that people will pay over $100 for a Zelda game. Persona Q is a crossover between Persona 3 and 4, and while most Persona games are expensive, this one is affordable. But that's probably because there are some reports that the cartridge of the game might not be manufactured correctly and cause the game to just not work, so keep that in mind. But the game seems to be inexpensive enough where it does happen, you're not going to be hurting too much, so buy now or wait. This is a prime example of what we're seeing now as opposed to a couple of years ago. When a series is popular, all of the games tend to spike around the same time rather than it being console specific. That being said, physical copies for the 3DS could remain high for the foreseeable future, and while the Tales series is popular, Namco doesn't seem to be in a hurry to re-release all of the games on modern consoles, but it's not impossible. Keep an eye out for a price that's within your budget, because at least as of the recording of this video, there aren't a lot for price charting's price. So there you have it. Not really as clear of an outlook as the Wii U prices. I'm not really surprised that the 3DS has more games at a higher price than the Wii U, and because it's only natural, the 3DS has a larger library and it was more popular. Historically, with video game systems, the price would drop when a system retires and lay dormant for 10 to 15 years before the generation that grew up with it became nostalgic and the prices would increase. But that didn't really happen with the 3DS, and instead of games dropping to clearance level and staying there for a long time, they dropped briefly when the Switch came out and then jumped in value during the 2020 pandemic. Not only did the pandemic drive demand, there's also a lot of exclusives that will remain on the system because the 3DS is a unique system with two screens, and some games are built specifically for those two screens and might not translate to a system with one. That's not to say that it will never happen. The recent Nintendo Direct showed several games that were originally on the Nintendo DS and now they're on the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, those aren't 3DS games, but there were already some 3DS games ported to the Nintendo Switch, and hopefully, given the demand that we're seeing with these prices, it will prompt more developers to port their games to the more active platforms. In the meantime, though, the prices will continue to remain high. We're in the midst of a spike, so it's really hard to say how long the price boom will last before demand drops and more people try to take advantage of the price increase and flood the market with their listings. And I want to emphasize again, I do think that the spike is temporary, and while some of the more expensive games will only come down just a bit, the more popular games that are less than $50 now will come down a lot quicker, even if they remain a little bit higher than what they were before the spike. Let me know in the comments below, do you think that this is the lowest point for 3DS prices, or do you think that they'll level out now that the eShop is closed and eventually the hype will die down? If you like what I do here on the channel and aren't already subscribed, please do so, and if you want to help the channel grow, please like the video and share it on social media. It really is the best way to grow the channel, and it's completely free. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at snicktendo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.